Hey there, this is Marky2200 and welcome to my Need for Speed Pro Street testing series. Today we're going to be ranking all cars from Need for Speed Pro Street from worst to best on a drag strip. The rank will be on the top left and the time will be on the top right. The quarter mile time will be on the top and the half mile time will be at the bottom. The rank itself will be based on the quarter mile time. Any other info like suspension setup will be in the description down below. With that said, let's see what is the worst car in the game for drag racing, which is at number 76. We have the Volkswagen Golf GTI, achieving a quarter mile time of 10.31 and a half mile time of 14.76. The Volkswagen Golf GTI, along with at number 75 the Ford Focus ST, which achieved a quarter mile time of 10.13 and a half mile time of 14.82, are the only two cars that achieved their quarter mile time above 10 seconds. And the reason for that is actually very simple. They both have massive wheel spin off the line, and the power they got don't really compensate for the wheel spin. And just like grip racing, there is a clear worst type of car for drag racing, and for grip racing that was classic muscle cars, and for drag racing that is easily front wheel drive cars, because the only cars that we just had, and we are at the bottom 4, we are number 73, the cars we only had are front wheel drive cars. We see here the Mazda 3 with again the exhaust sticking out of the car, quarter mile time of 9.61, and the next car again a front wheel drive car. This alongside the Honda Civic is one you can get from Battle Machine from the second race challenge you enter. They're not very great. Beyond this one, at number 71 we have our first car that is not a front wheel drive car. It is the Toyota Corolla GTS, and the reason it is so low down the list, it is simply because it has got no power whatsoever. But just like I said previously, the worst type of car in the game is a front wheel drive car. Oh wait, before I'm gonna talk about this, the interesting one, Aston Martin DB9. It is so terrible, it cannot be tuned, you cannot change the suspension, and therefore it will always wheelie off the line. And that is something you genuinely want to avoid. Because if you wheelie off the line, you lose traction, and traction is something extremely important for drag racing. I will say though, the Aston Martin DBR9 is excellent for wheelie competitions. So we're coming down to the top of the 9-second group at number 68, the Acura RSX, achieving its quarter mile time at 9.06 and its half mile time at 13.56. The next one, we're coming down to pretty much the top half of what is the front wheel drive cars. We have at number 67 the Acura Integra Type R, achieving its quarter mile time at 8.86. We've broken through the 8-second mark, and its half mile time at 13.36. The next one, at number 66, we have a classic muscle car. We have what is the extremely terrible 1967 Shelby GT 500, achieving a quarter mile time of 8.83 and its half mile time at 13.36. Now the next one, I'm going to tell you, the next one at number 65 we have the Acura Integra, the regular one, but it also achieved a quarter mile time at 8.83, same like the Shelby. The reason it's above the Shelby is because its half mile time was better. So whenever there's a tie between two cars in the quarter mile time, the ranking will be based on the half mile time. Now this is a quite sad one, the Porsche Carrera GT, and it is down here for one simple reason: stage 3 suspension. You can only choose between the stock suspension and stage 3 suspension because it's such a high-end supercar. Most high-end cars you can only choose stage 3 suspension, and when you are in that scenario you need to make a choice, because the stock suspension will guarantee you wheel spin. Stage 3 suspension will guarantee you a wheelie, and just like I said before, doing a wheelie is something you simply do not want in a drag race. There are some cars that can really get away with using stage 3 suspension, and in general I recommend using stage 3 if you have the choice between stock and stage 3 suspension, but that's more a personal opinion. But if you have to use stage 3, you will need to make some extreme adjustments to gear ratio, gear tuning and gear choices. And with gear choices I mean things like starting in second gear, maybe even starting in third gear, because if you really do not want to wheelie, and if you start in a higher gear you will wheelie later and have a better launch, but that is something you need to play around with. But we will get there towards the end of the video. Now number 59 is the perfect example of why you need to tune your car for drag racing. As we all know, the Bugatti Veyron in Need for Speed Pro Street cannot be tuned, and that simply means you can have all of the power in the world, and in this case it's 1,000 of them, but if you don't tune your suspension, if you don't tune your tires, etc., you will only get what is in the Veyron's case a quarter mile time of only 8.24 seconds, and that results in being only 59th best. So I cannot stress this enough. Tune your suspension for drag racing. The suspension setup will be in the description down below, and it's largely the same for every car. It's only different for the 70s Challenger, but again that will be in the description down below. Now when it comes to the drivetrain setup, that's a little bit of a story, because I've said this in the grip racing video, but I use RPMs to 10,000 RPM and an RPM red limit of 9,800 RPM. The simple reason I have that is because I like to play that way, and the reason I've tested this is because I simply wanted to know what is the best drag car. Now, does this mean that this list is completely useless to the ones that don't use RPM this way? No, because while performance has been increased, I don't know how much, but it has been increased, the results haven't been changed really. I can't confirm how much the results would have been changed had I used the normal RPM, but I've tested some cars here and there using the normal RPM off camera, and from what I can tell, results are largely the same. To be absolutely sure though, I've said this in the grip racing video, but somewhere in the future I will be testing all of the cars in Need for Speed Pro Street again for grip racing, for drag racing, for speed testing and for drifting using the normal RPM. Like I said, it will be somewhere in the future, but I have a big list I want to get through before I will eventually get back to Need for Speed Pro Street, and I will be testing the cars using the normal RPM. Now, going back to suspension stage choice, just to avoid any confusion, it only applies to rear wheel drive cars. So if you have a four wheel drive car like the Lancia Delta, or a front wheel drive car for drag racing, you can pick the best stage choice you have available. So if it's stage 3, you can pick that. If you're even lucky enough to have stage 4 available, pick that. But if you have a rear wheel drive car for drag racing, not for wheeling, for drag racing, you need to do the suspension revert trick, and that is actually quite simple to do. First thing you need to do is apply the best stage for suspension you have. Tune it as you wish, update the blueprint, and then revert to either stage 1 or stage 2, depending on how wheelie happy the car is, because that varies from car to car. It's best to try for yourself, see what's best for you, see what's best for the car. Now at number 48, the Mercedes-Benz SL65 AMG, it can only use stage 3 suspension, and when you use stage 3 suspension, it will wheelie, and when you're wheeling, you have no control of the car, and well, it's bound to get to one side of the wall, and when you get to one side to the wall, you will lose time. And now at number 47 we have the Volkswagen Golf R32. Great sounding car, average on drag racing, it's okay. And now at number 46 we're coming on to the car the Speed King uses, the Pontiac GTO from 1965. I mean, again, it's average. I mean, you really want to use either stage 1 or stage 2 suspension depending on how much power you have available. Yeah, what can I say about it? It's pretty much average. Now the Camaro SS is an interesting car for drag racing. and that is because it has a secret trick. Now I've done this test without using NOS, and as you can see, without NOS it gets a drag time of 7.89. But when you have NOS available, most preferably stage 3, or if you have it, stage 4, and then you tune the drivetrain properly. The setup for the drivetrain will be in the description down below for the Camaro SS and for many other cars, like I said previously. And then at the start of the drag strip, you start in 5th gear, use NOS immediately, and then you will get a ridiculous drag time of, well, I've got it under 6 seconds actually. What also caught my attention is the diversity in the car classes in these rankings. Besides the obvious that the front wheel drive cars are easily the worst type of cars in the game for drag racing, the ranking itself is actually pretty diverse. Like we see here the Audi R8, an all-wheel drive supercar. Up next we have the Porsche 911 GT2, which is a rear-wheel drive supercar, but just a minute ago we were talking about an all-wheel drive sports car, 2 classic muscle cars, another all-wheel drive sports car, a rear-wheel drive sports car. The list, you can see the list is actually pretty diverse. Like we see here right now, the Infiniti G35, a rear-wheel drive sports car, average, gets a drag time of 7.80, but we also had an all-wheel drive sports car, the Audi R8, the almighty Audi R8 I should say, achieving a drag time of 7.85. As we reach the halfway point for this list, at number 40 we have the Ford Mustang GT from 2003, achieving a drag time of 7.78 and a half-mile drag time of 12.09, and as you will see, we're at the halfway point, so these times are average. At number 39, same goes, the BMW Z4 M Coupe, achieving a drag time of as well 7.78, but its half-mile drag time was only 4/100th faster than the Ford Mustang, so it barely edges out to number 39. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. The McLaren F1, the best grip car in the game by a couple of seconds, only gets the 38th best drag time in the game. And as you can see, I start in 3rd gear and it does a wheelie. That can only mean one thing: you can only pick stage 3 suspension. And that's a terrible thing, because for McLaren F1 you expect the drag time to be in the low 7 seconds, maybe in the high 6 seconds, but because you can only pick stage 3 suspension and it does a wheelie, it only gets the 38th best time. And when it comes to the Dodge Charger, I expected much better from this actually. The Dodge Charger used to be my go-to drag car because I am a big fan of classic muscle cars, and particularly the first Fast and Furious movie when Dominic Toretto uses the Dodge Charger for drag racing, and I always loved that. But seeing it only gets the 37th best drag time in the game is actually kinda sad when it even loses to a car like this, the Cadillac CTS-V, which gets a drag time of 7.71. It becomes 35th best. So we recently passed the halfway point. In fact, quite funnily enough, the McLaren F1 was the dead average car, which is quite funny because it's not an average normal car in any way, shape or form. But here at number 33 we have the Porsche 911 GT3 RS. Again, it does a little wheelie off the line, but as you can see right here, it doesn't do a huge wheelie, so the time loss is minimal. I believe I use stage 2 suspension, but again, you'll have to play around. Maybe stage 1 suspension suits better for your car, and I am pretty sure I've used the same for the Nissan Silvia stage 2 suspension. But the reason I haven't put the suspension stage for each and every rear-wheel drive car in the description is because it varies from car to car and it is highly dependent on your power stage. So I've used stage 3 engine and stage 3 forced induction for this test, but let's use the Nissan Silvia as a great example. It may be when you have stage 4 engine and stage 4 forced induction, you need to reduce the suspension stage by 1 more, so you need to reduce it to stage 1. But I don't know, I haven't tested that way. So this is really something you need to play around with. So maybe even if you have stage 2 engine and stage 2 forced induction, you can use stage 3 suspension. Again, I haven't tested that. But that is really something you need to play around with, test around with, see what suits best for you, see what suits best for the car. Now here we have at number 29, we've reached the top 30, the Nissan Skyline R34. All of these cars are pretty good right now because, well, what defines a good drag car? Does it mean that if you can beat the drag queen Carol Monroe, Does it mean that you have a good drag car? Because if so, well, I believe number 50 is a good drag car. Or does it mean when you can beat Rio, you have a good drag car? As we see Rio's car actually achieving a drag time of 7.51. Well, to be honest, I think when you can beat Rio, you have a good drag car. So really, well, but what car can beat Rio? I mean, Rio is inconsistent in his drag times, is really what I can say. But I think generally speaking, number 30 and up, which was the Chevrolet Chevelle SS, are good drag times. And we see right here, number 25, the RX-7, which was also number 25 on grip races. And again, you saw a little wheelie. It was only a small wheelie. It didn't affect any drag times. I believe again it was stage 2, but that's that. So number 24 we have the BMW M3 E46 achieving a drag time of 7.45. I mean, really, all of these cars, this is actually quite surprising to me, because at number 23 we have the Nissan 240 SX, which achieved a drag time of 7.36. And the reason it's so surprising is, on paper it hasn't got a lot of power, but the traction it has is great, and therefore it accelerates pretty great. And then at number 22, one spot higher, the almighty Lamborghini Murcielago. I mean, who know that the Lamborghini Murcielago is 100 faster than the Nissan 240 SX? And then we have the Lotus Elise at number 21, achieving a drag time of 7.33. Again, on paper it hasn't got a lot of power, but when you see how quickly it accelerates, I mean, that's quite astonishing actually. So we have reached the top 20, and at number 20 itself we have the Chevrolet Camaro achieving a drag time of 7.29 and a half mile drag time of 10.89. And after this one we have another great car, which was also great for grip racing. We have the Mazda RX-8 achieving a drag time of 7.28 and a half mile drag time of 11.16. And well, the rank has been based on the quarter mile drag time. If it was on the half mile drag time, the Camaro would have been 4 or 5 spots higher. Another surprising car, the Pontiac Solstice, achieving a drag time of 7.24, a half mile drag time of 11.18. Yeah, by this time there isn't really too much to say besides the drag times. And at number 17 we have the Chevrolet Corvette CO6, which achieved a time of 7.23 and a half mile time of 11.33. I mean, I actually expected this car to be a little bit better, but 7.23 is pretty good nonetheless. And here we have at number 16 the drag queen's drag car, the Ford Mustang GT, achieving a drag time of 7.13. I mean, really, the drag queen itself, I mean, when you have a car this good for drag racing, I thought she would be more difficult to beat, but really, I mean, the queens, or I should say, the kings and queens itself are actually pretty easy to beat. But that's a different story. So at number 15 we just seen the Dodge Viper, and at number 14, actually quite surprising to me, the Nissan 350Z achieving a drag time of just shy of over 7 seconds and a half mile drag time of 11.03. We're coming very close to the 6-second mark, but at number 13 we have the Porsche 911 GT2 achieving a drag time of again 7.05, but since again its half mile drag time was just a little bit faster, it edges out to number 13. Number 12, again quite surprising to me, Acura NSX achieving a drag time of 7.03 and a half mile drag time of 10.83. And after this one we've achieved the 6-second mark, with at number 11 the classic Dodge Challenger achieving a time of 6.93. I mean, it goes without saying, all of these cars are amazing for drag races. We've reached the top 10, and at number 10 we have the modern Pontiac GTO. Actually not surprising to me, because I've used this car a couple of times and it was amazing for drag races, achieving a time of 6.88. And at number 9 we have another car, I knew was amazing. The Subaru Impreza WRX achieving a time of 6.84. I mean, look at the way it accelerates. It goes to 100 in no time. By the way, actually quite sad, but many cars achieved their 0 to 100 just shy of over 1 second. I mean, the Pagani Zonda achieved the 0 to 100 in about 1.20, 1.30, something like that, but no car, unfortunately, no car achieved 0 to 100 under 1 second. There were a couple of cars that were extremely close, like some cars achieved a 0 to 100 in about 1.05 or 1.06, but no car achieved a 0 to 100 time under 1 second. So at number 6 we have the bigger brother of the Mustang GT. We have the Shelby GT500 achieving an amazing quarter mile drag time of 6.78. The classic one was quite crap, but the modern GT500 is amazing for drag racing. So the top 5, and at number 5 we have the Ford GT again in the top 5, just like in grab racing. And as you see, we do a slight wheelie, and that's because this is one of the cars that can get away with using the stage 3 suspension. At number 4 we have the Chevrolet Corvette C6, not the CO6 but the C6, achieving a drag time of 6.66 and a half mile drag time of under 10 seconds. I mean, if that doesn't convince you, pretty much nothing will. At number 3 we have the Koenigsegg CCX, which does use stage 3 suspension, but the gears are quite widely tuned. We start from the second gear and it doesn't do a wheelie. It's an amazing car. It gets a time of 6.55. And at number 2 we have what many thought was the king of the drag cars, but it isn't. It just isn't. We have the Toyota Supra, and yes, it does a wheelie, but no, it doesn't lose any time. Drag time 6.51. But the best drag car in Need for Speed Pro Street is indeed the Chevrolet Corvette 67, also known as the C2 Corvette, achieving a quarter mile drag time of 6.39 and a half mile drag time of 9.61. And I'm gonna shut up for a second here. .405 kilometers an hour at the end of the quarter mile. 405, which is, as near as make no difference, 250 miles an hour. And now we'll see the half mile. Nearly, just nearly 500 kilometers an hour on the half mile drag strip. So those were all 76 cars ranked from worst to best on a drag race in Need for Speed Pro Streets. With, well, to be honest, it was quite surprising. See the Corvette C2 at number 1. Now again, will it also be number 1 using the normal RPMs? I don't know, but again, it will be tested somewhere in the future. This has been it for now though. The next video will be all 76 cars in Need for Speed Pro Street ranked from worst to best on a speed challenge. I don't know if a retesting video will be beforehand. It wasn't the case with the drag times because, well, no drag times has been improved using the retest, but we shall see. For now, this has been Marky 2200 and I will see you guys in the next video.